January 22nd, it's 4:03 p.m., and I call this meeting to order. We have quorum here. I believe we're just missing a few members here. I want to thank everyone, both the members of the board, as well as those of us that are assembled here as members of the public, and of course our COB, MNCO staff for being here. We're going to be thoughtful and diligent with our time, but purposeful as well. I do not have... I want to jump right into the agenda here, but I want to be thoughtful too of the approval of the minutes. Has the board, have you all had an opportunity, are we prepared to review and offer a motion for the minutes? But I believe we have more than one set in front of us. I reviewed two as well as an additional one. Is everyone set on that? Those that, okay. All right, so we'll start in order here. I'm going to lean over and look a little bit over Mr. Martinez because I think we have the November and the December, November 20th and December 18th. Let's start with November 20th. Is there a, oh, do we? Okay, perfect. So November 20th will go in order. Is there a motion for the minutes there? So moved. Thank you, Mr. Campbell-Gooch. In 1 second. Do we have a second? Thank you, Chief Turner. Focused discussion on the November 20th minutes. Mr. Sweeney.
One thing under item 2, establish quorum. It's a quorum of 7 rather than 6.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. Any additional discussion notes, revisions necessary? Mr. Martinez.
Dr. Hildreth's name is misspelled in the second bullet point on the second page.
On the second bullet point on the second page, okay. Is it her first name? Or,
yes.
Okay, Phyllis. Okay, perfect. It's easy to note. Thank you very much. Anything else here? If not, all those in favor, please say aye. 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 Nay, abstention, the motion carries. Thank you very much. We'll move now into December 4th. Is there a motion for the approval of the minutes there? Thank you, Mr. Sweeney. Second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Martinez. Any focused discussion on the December 4th minutes or revisions? No? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Nay, abstention, the motion carries. Thank you very much. And last but not least, December 18th. I believe that was in fact our last one right before the holidays. Is there a motion for the approval of those minutes? Thank you, Mr. Sweeney. 1 second.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Campbell-Gooch. You spoke just a little faster than you, Mr. Martinez. Any focused discussion on that? Okay, thank you very much. All those in favor, please say aye. Nay, abstention, the motion carries. Thank you very much. And that concludes the approval of the minutes. Thank you very much. I want to thank also Ms. Persons as well for getting us up to speed and for what is clearly, quite frankly, error-proof on our minutes. Thank you very much. I think that's quite important. Before I go into chair remarks, and I don't have a ton to share today, I want to acknowledge a fresh and bright face we're happy to welcome here. We have Mr. Andrew Goddard here as joined a member of the board. Congratulations and welcome. And I believe you like to be called Drew, right? That's much smoother, Drew. I like that. Welcome, Drew. We congratulate you on your appointment to the board. That's great. We also received news last night that our current and now reappointed member of the board, Dr. Hildreth, she was reappointed last night. And so congratulations to her as well. We'll hold our claps until she gets here. She deserves them for that and so much more that she's given to the board. Over the last month, we have enjoyed quite a bit of great progress, but also more than that, a lot of positive collaboration. I feel it's important to just note what I shared with the executive committee last week. I think it was last week, a week before last when we met. And I offered them just an overview of what I, as chair, been up to since our holiday meeting, our pre-holiday meeting on the 18th. So that week of Christmas, not much went on, but the week of New Year's, on New Year's Eve, I met with Mr. Bob Cooper, the director, Metro legal director, as well as our legal director, Mr. Pinkley was there as well, and we went line by line, section by section over the MOU. Before that meeting, I also spoke extensively with Director Fitchard so that I was prepared and could answer any and all questions that I might have. And the purpose of that meeting was just so that I could take our proposed and approved final draft as a board and put that side by side with the final draft that had been proposed with the collaboration from the task force. I was very pleased with the tremendous amount of energy, effort, and work that was clear and present in that MOU. It was also very evident that not just the purpose, but the spirit and intent of the MOU as the COB had gathered together was present in that MOU, and that goes in no small favor to the great work and tireless effort of Dr. Hildreth, and we were holding our applause for you, Dr. Hildreth, because it's certainly noteworthy, but we want to thank you for that and congratulate you also on your reappointment, so congratulations. Thank you so very much. And so I did have that meeting. After that meeting, I had another conversation with Director Fitchard. I wanted to just connect back with her and share my thoughts and impressions there. I then had a short, brief conversation just to ensure that the press release, we wanted to make sure that the press release that the mayor's office intended to send out was reflective of what the COB was prepared to do. And it was clear that the police, MMPD was prepared to review and offer their final review and approval before we as a governing body could come back together. But we wanted to be thoughtful also about ensuring that everyone that could be present would be present. And they were very good partners in understanding that while they could all get together quickly, we could not right away. And I appreciate that as well. The good thing, and now that the MOU has been approved by the executive committee and is living and working and functioning, the good thing is that even before we had that approval, the MOU was already working. I heard from our director, and she'll share more with you. The email address was live. All of the requests that we've made of MMPD were not only acknowledged, but were responded to in short order. God forbid there's a need, but we now know that if there's a police-involved shooting or anything related to that matter, that Director Fitchard will get the same call out at the same time as Director Morante of OPA, and the same access at any crime scene as well. So the things that we talked about, spoke about, and let's be honest, dreamed of bringing to fruition are now in black and white, and also exists as a living document. And I don't know if everyone's had a chance to read through it as a member of the public, but it's important to note that last section that says, if there are disagreements, which there will be, right? We are not at an impasse. We are saying that we will come back to the table. It's not a matter of if, it is you will, right? And that is both parties engaged there. And we will continue to work together to make sure that this document exists in the way it should. That's no small feat, right? We could have just said, this is good, it's done, let's sign it. But Dr. Hildreth, Deputy Chief Hager, Mr. Cooper led us to ensure that that document would continue to grow as our city grows. And I'm very thankful for that as well. After speaking with the executive director, I also had, we had a meeting as well with, maybe a week later, with DA Funk. I did with Director Fitchard and Dr. Villier. And the purpose and cause of that meeting was to discuss the body-worn cameras. DA Funk requested that meeting, I believe, the evening before, the afternoon before. Am I correct, Dr. Fitchard? So we were reviewing the very exhaustive report. It takes a bit of time to get through that report that sends out the kind of proposed dollar amount for all of our officers to be outfitted with body-worn cameras. I am not an expert in body-worn cameras. I made that very clear at that meeting, but I was there to listen and to learn, and I did share just one. I want you to know exactly what I shared with DA Funk. I said that we want, as a COB space, we want to ensure that any and all numbers that are communicated to the public are done dutifully, right? They're done in a way that are not meant to scare people with a big price tag that then makes people feel like it's impossible. And we also want to ensure that as we are making decisions, we're making them behind the veil of ignorance. We're not thinking about who's going to benefit, but rather it's the right thing to do. And DA Funk said that he appreciated that. He actually opened the space for us to have additional conversations down the line. And I said to him, I felt that it was important that instead of leading this body-worn camera every time with a dollar sign, we talk about the people's lives who are going to be improved and safer because of it. That didn't come from me, but that's just what we've heard from the community and we continue to hear. And that as a board, we are working on our own to find and get the voices at the table in the policies led by Mr. Campbell-Gooch here, to ensure that the policies that are developed reflect the people and their needs, right? And I said, to be very quite frank with you, we're going to worry about the numbers on the other side of it, so that then we can be thoughtful about that and creative in getting to those solutions. And so that's just the beginning of that conversation, because since then, Director Fitchett has had more than at least one solid meeting there where they've met with the experts that came to town, and she'll tell you more about that. But as chair, that is exactly what I've been up to since December 18th there. So I'll pause there if there are questions. And yes, I did go dark a little bit and read a book too, so I got a little break away from it. But this work is important, and if Dr. Hildreth can continue to give her time, not just through the holidays, but beyond, all of us should be able to as well. It's just that important. So I'll pause for comments there. If not, we will move forward with the agenda. If not, thank you very much. We'll move well, actually, let's invite Mr. Durbin here. We have our ITS director here for an update, but also to share with us a lot of information we've been talking about, but need the expert to lead us. Mr. Durbin, I don't know if you've seen the recordings. I mean, they are your recordings, so I know that you've seen them, but we talked quite a bit about your incredible staff and the way they've been helpful to us. And so we just think that's important, to note that I know they're back here and above, but they've been great to us, and welcome. You have the floor.
One of the things that we've discussed.
Mr. Durbin, is your mic on? I want to make sure. There we go.
There it is. All right. That's better. I should know these things, shouldn't I? So I had the pleasure at the end of December in meeting with some members of your staff and to talk about some of the issues that have been going on for a number of months that we have spoken with your prior director, that we want to make sure that we are supporting you appropriately. And so the team with Nashville.gov and I'll just say, are very aware and supportive of the important role that you and your board have in the community and the issues that you've had in the past about posting documents to our Nashville.gov website. My team and I are also committed to working with you, as I've mentioned to your director, of working that out to address this issue once and for all. Our goal is to provide you with an excellent tool to get your message of transparency out to the public through the official Nashville.gov site, while still maintaining Metro's global commitment to serving everyone in the community regardless of ability. I have worked personally with Metro Legal as well as Metro's ADA coordinator to look at the concerns that have been expressed about your sharing of documents online. As you know, from our prior discussions, that we as a group, legal, ADA, and ITS, have recommended repeatedly that you not post scanned documents or non-compliant PDF documents to Metro's website. The reason for that is that because the visually disabled who are using screen reader software, that software is unable to make logical sense of the document content. Thus, those documents are not accessible to everyone. I also mentioned non-compliant documents. So what is a compliant document? Those are documents which, in their original word processing form, are transformed by a PDF writer software into a PDF. This process results in a document that, in our experience, is accessible to screen readers and thus to their users. In order to accomplish this, the PDF Writer software is the simple and cheap part of this whole equation. What will require staff time and the cooperation of your partners, including MMPD, will be to get documents that you are interested to post online, either in original word processing format for you to produce as a PDF, or for you to help them understand your requirements and for them to provide to you that compliant and accessible document. So remember, too, that a scanned document alone, even though it has, and we've discussed optical character recognition, and so it's just when you go through and you scan a document and it recognizes the letter and puts those in the file, will not be compliant. However, a solution to a situation where someone sends you a document, someone sends you a handwritten letter that you would like to post, the scanned image can be posted, providing that someone on your staff will transcribe that document into a compliant document and post the two documents side by side. Kind of in closing, I'd like to say that our web team, who Brenzi and others have worked with, and they enjoy working with her, are available to you and your staff to help with posting or advice should there be any questions. And to close, I'm certainly not an attorney, but this advice comes not only from ITS, but also Metro Legal's and Metro's ADA office in order to look out for our citizens' best interests as well as yours. And I'm happy to take questions.
Thank you, Mr. Durbin. Mr. Sweeney?
Are you familiar with the PACER process over in federal court?
I am not.
Because that's a process by which also documents have to be readable.
Mm-hmm.
And you can go through a program that then converts it and is permitted to be filed on federal court, and you don't have to have original documents in order to do that. I don't know how that software is different from what you have, but it permits any type of document, whether it's a newspaper article, whether it's I don't know about handwritten documents, but anything other than a handwritten document, it permits it because it has to be readable in the same sort of way. And that's why I find this confusing, and I'm probably the one who has raised the issues more than any other. And because the transparency issue for the board is one of the most important things that we do. So before every meeting that we have, we post the documents that we expect to discuss. And then there are times when some of those documents become exhibits to the minutes. And it doesn't make sense to have in the minutes all the stuff that's in the documents. It makes much more sense in order to be able to have an exhibit. And it just seems, since it seems to work relatively easily in federal court, that it's just confusing to me why there's not a similar capability here for Metro, and if there are other options to consider.
So I would imagine, and I sympathize, I'm not familiar with the PACER product. It sounds as though it is some form of optical character recognition that creates something that is compliant, and I can't imagine that a federal court would use something that was not ADA compliant. Right. I am happy to work with your staff under your direction if we can get some contacts with an agency where we can see what that is, examine if it's available for other purposes. It could be something that's good for not just you all, but for Metro organization, Metro departments and agencies at large. So I'm happy to work with Director Pritchard and others to look at that.
Okay. One other related question. So before the meeting, we post a number of things on our website. Mm-hmm. Are we not supposed to be posting them there because they're not compliant?
That is the direction of Metro Legal, ITS, and our ADA office, is that we do not want items like that that are deemed non-compliant to be posted. And so in the discussion I had, If there are things that can be made compliant and could be made readable by screen readers, that is the goal, is to have this accessible to everyone. Metro, prior to me coming, had some experience with the federal ADA agencies regarding non-compliance. So it is something, though, even though I don't know the details, it's something that we have been very cognizant of, and the staff. Some members of the web team have been working with us for 15, 20 years doing this work, and they are extremely cognizant, and as Brenzy can attest, very picky when it comes to the things that are put out there, as you're aware.
Right.
So our recommendation, and again, I've gone to Metro Legal last summer, ran this back by Metro Legal in the ADA office in December before I met with the director, and none of the advice that we're providing to you changes.
Right.
And that we recommend that not happening.
Right.
Without going through some of these processes that I've laid out for you.
Right. The challenge we have is that we want to give the public out there who's coming to attend our meeting notice of what it is that's going to come before the board. And that's
Understood.
why we post all those documents, and we just don't always necessarily get them in a convenient format. Because we get them from other people, and we just don't necessarily have the ability to do that. So I was trying to figure out, is there a distinction between what we post in advance of the meeting and what somehow gets officially posted in another way?
If it's on Nashville.gov, then there is no distinction in my mind as to the directive that we offer with regard to that data. No distinction whatsoever. Or should there be some other location where you'd post them in the public? You are a Metro sanctioned board, therefore the advice that comes from Metro Legal, I mean, you obviously have your own attorneys, doesn't differ.
Right. Can I make one other distinction?
Of course.
Are you making a distinction between advice and required?
I am a department head. I am the chief information officer. I make lots of advice. There is little I can do other than having staff refuse to post something for you.
Right. Right, but if we can post it ourselves, then that's just a separate issue.
At the end of the day, Metro as a whole is liable for what you do. They're not coming for you. They're not coming for the board. They're coming for Metro, where the deep pockets are. And so, which is where our advice comes from.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Durbin. Thank you, Ms. Sweeney. Any additional questions or comments here? Dr. Hildreth.
Thank you. I just have one question. Can we have some idea of what the real scope of the problem is? What is it that we put up that has been deemed to be non-compliant? What are we actually worried about here? Could I have a response? Thank you.
Mr. Durbin and/or Director Fitchard, I think you're best placed.
Well, I think Mr. Sweeney said it best, that he brought up some concerns about the type of documents that we receive from our complainants that might be handwritten, and those are the types of things that we want the public to be able to have access to. If we receive a letter, then we would have to make a scanned copy of it. And that, I guess, not only pertains to our documents, but it could be commendations, right? We're not able to have those items uploaded onto our website.
Dr. Hildreth, does that answer your question?
Thank you. That's partially helpful. I want to know in real terms, what is it that we have posted or attempted to post that's been non-compliant?
Mr. Martinez,
I
if you
think
don't want
anytime that we have PDFs that have been run through the OCR process that makes them, you could highlight the text, that makes them unreadable for screen readers. Is that correct?
Or non-compliant.
Non-compliant, right? So if any PDF.
So I'm still asking. One of the things that we are concerned about with transparency is making sure that we're posting to the public information that we receive from Metro Police Department. They're a part of Metro. We just negotiated this great MOU, I'm told, that can help us figure out how we agree to do things. So let us presume that we can agree that whatever we receive from the police are going to be not a problem. I do get the letters from the public. How many of those have we posted or attempted to post? I'm trying to actually understand what the barrier is to the work with the communication we've been having with the public so far. And if there is something huge that, say, one of our partner community organizations has shared with us that we plan to post and weren't able to do, I would like to know an example of that. Or are we just speaking theoretically going forward? Because if it's going forward, that gives it a lot more latitude to be creative and do some problem solving. If we're actually talking about a problem that is impeding our ability to communicate with our public right now with what you want us to communicate with, that I am actually not aware of, and I wanted to know. So that is the specificity of my question.
I think that this all started with the fact that we have on our minutes an attachment. So we had our minutes, and then how the minutes were being written, there was in each section, it would say, if you have, it would say, see attachment A or see attachment B. And we weren't able to attach those particular, whether it was a document or a letter. Most times we had those, we just weren't able to couple it with the minutes. We haven't run into any situations currently, but I think that the question was posed because if that happens, we still need to have an answer. And so I think that that's why Mr. Durbin is here.
And I would agree with you, if I might add, that part of what I mentioned was I would certainly speak to the police department, because some of the documents that were given to me as examples 6 months ago were documents that I know for a fact were created by the police department in Microsoft Word. They were printed and then scanned, which negates the ability to put on. So that is certainly one aspect that could solve some of your problems.
Let me go to Mr. Campbell-Gooch, and then we'll come back to Mr. Sweeney.
Well, Chair, my question is about the email that I have, the email that we have in front of us. Okay. So I don't want to throw this off subject.
Thank you, Mr. Sweeney. Then we'll come right back to you.
Could we post a document like this, which is our annual report?
Assuming it's created in a word processing program, then converted.
But I mean, with the pictures and all like that, so that it will look like exactly what we've submitted to the state?
Yes, and assuming. So there are rules about images in compliance and on websites, and I'm not going to get into details, but an image with like on a website, if there's an image that has words over it, that's automatically non-compliant. So there are things that people that produce professional documents such as that are aware of as they're producing those documents. There are things they don't do. But assuming that is a compliant document that's done using standard processes, yes. Now, I haven't looked at that, so I can't say that for a fact, but
Right. Okay, thank you.
my staff would be happy to look at that and if they've not already. But yes, that's absolutely the type of thing that you need to have out there. We want to help you make sure, do whatever it takes to get those things out there, because transparency is a critical factor here.
Thank you, Mr. Campbell-Gooch.
Thank you, Director Durbin, for being here. I have a quick question about, we have an email in front of us from Chris Singleton?
Yes.
Okay. I didn't know if you were going to go into that email.
I am happy to. I was waiting for the director to speak about it, but Chris is one of my managers, and so I can speak to it, but I'd like you to introduce it however you were planning on.
So when we were last, I think it was in. So in December, you posed a question, Board Member Gooch, in regards to having our February meeting at the Rose Park Center. And so when we came back from the holidays in January, I asked Brinzy to reach out to Mr. Singleton in regards to how that could operate, right? Because we had been told that that the centers had to have enough bandwidth to be able to live broadcast and live stream. And so Mr. Singleton responded in a very thoughtful and very, it's really laid out it answers all the questions that I had. And if you're looking at it, you see that there's 6 6 different locations, including 2 precincts, that are, I guess, the places that the live streaming is done on a continual basis. If we want to take our meetings out into the community, based on this email, he says that we aren't able to live stream, that we could go out into the community and they could record, but we would be on a delayed broadcast. And so why I brought this up today is to determine whether the board would make the decision to not be live streamed and to be on a delayed broadcast. And then if that is the case, then we can go into any community center or outside of the 6 different locations that that MNN uses on a regular basis.
So I was reading an email, and I also see, first of all, thank you for following up on that director feature, and thank you, Branty, because I definitely want to get this on the road and bring this to the people that we are serving. And also, I think it helps us to provide a level of transparency that is not seen and that people are not familiar with when it comes to metro government bodies. But when I was reading on the email, I noticed that it says we do have an option to delay, but it's an either-or type thing, right? We can't have it delayed 1 month and then show it live the next. And that's what my question is, right, is if we're having 1 full board meeting a month, it seems to me that we should be able, with enough ahead of time, to have one in the community that's delayed and then come back and keep having them live. So I'm just curious about that policy, Director.
So just based, and I had not read this prior to Jill handing this to me earlier, and I wasn't aware Chris sent this, but what I can say here is one of the things, we do a lot of board and commission meetings. We do a lot of them live, and we do even more of them on tape delays. I would imagine that one aspect here is that just like council meetings every other Tuesday, you know, there is a certain time and people are used to doing that. I would imagine, not having Chris here, that could introduce some level of confusion. That's one conjecture. The second, I would say that the staffing associated with that may be an issue as well. It is a small team of 8 people that do all of that, and they do a great job, and they love the work that they do. I would commit, though, that should you all develop a schedule that looks far enough out, as opposed to, you know, a month ahead of time or a couple of weeks ahead of time, decided, hey, we're going to do this at Rose Park, and hey, we're going to do this one back at HOB, that we would absolutely be happy to work with you on that. Even though Chris isn't here and he said something slightly different, I'm happy to commit to you. Because I agree with everything you just said about the transparency and getting into the community.
Can I follow? And I will say thank you for that. If you can, how much time, I know just ballpark, I know things change, but how much time would you want to know ahead?
That's a question for Chris, I would say. You know, off the top of my head, I'm thinking if you all could plan 6 months out, that may be far, but, you know, a lot of boards and commissions plan the work that they're doing farther out than that. But we'll work with you on that as well. We need to get a discussion going with Chris.
I do want to say on behalf of Mr. Singleton that he said that the reason for this is because of the calendar, that this calendar is already set many, many months in advance. And so that is why he, you know, made this decision, because of the calendar and how he's already we have 70 boards and commissions in this city, so.
And more of them are being broadcast, which is fantastic, and we want to facilitate that.
Thank you. Dr. Hildreth.
Thank you. And I also want to join my gratitude from day one of our creation, like right after Amendment 1 was voted on. You and your office have been tremendously helpful to start off the whole relationship with the community and this board around transparency. So I'm so grateful to that. Also thinking about what it takes for us to be flexible, be in other places, I may have mentioned this casually to Director Fitchett. I'd like to ask the question here today on the record. Is it also possible to do live audio cast when live video cast is not available? Because I suspect that part of this relationship is being able to hear the whole thing unedited in real time, because by the time, as many of us know, by the time we walk out of this chamber, there are already news media or other folks who are tweeting about it, and the conversation has begun. And so the ability to be in the conversation even audibly, if not visually, may be more important than a delayed broadcast if I had to choose. Of course, don't make me choose. So.
Sure.
Is audible broadcasting something that we can talk about, and is that within the purview of your department?
We are happy to talk about it. I will be honest with you, in the 11 years that I've been in this role, this is the first time that has been requested. Now, we are a video production organization. You know, back in the day, PLN was part of Metro. No, but that's since moved on. I'm happy to have that discussion with Chris and his team about what that would take, because I couldn't agree with you more, and we will happily investigate those possibilities.
Thank you. And my last remark on that is, because I was just accused by a colleague of ageism, that podcasts are very much a part of our current scheme. And so
Yes.
thinking about the audible component as being a part of the way we are doing media now, I just thank you for considering.
Absolutely.
Okay, I see Mr. Sweeney has a comment or a question here. As we take this, Mr. Sweeney's comment and or question here, I just want to point out, Director Fitchett, it's clear that the board has a lot of, I think, very pointed and purposeful ideas here. If you wouldn't mind, if that's a connection between Director Durbin and Mr. Singleton as well, and perhaps can bring this to the next executive committee meeting so that we can be able to be prepared to share with the board an option moving forward, once we looked at all the options on the table. With that, Mr. Sweeney, and then we'll be prepared to move forward.
The video is posted to our website for every one of our meetings. Is it possible that the delayed broadcast could be immediately uploaded to our website so that the broadcast of it is delayed, but the video is immediately viewable?
So that does happen. So regardless of when, as soon as, and we've got new technology in place over the last 6 months to actually expedite that even further. So it is my understanding that when a meeting is produced, it's come back, it is uploaded to our YouTube channel, and it is available then. I often get requests from council members on Wednesday mornings, hey, when is this going to be available? And typically it already is available. They're just not aware of it or to find it. So I think it's pretty easy to make a commitment along those lines. Typically we say within 24 hours, but that is to give us a little wiggle room in case there's some issue. Usually it is less than that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Director Durbin. Thank you very much for being here with us. We appreciate it. Unless you have anything else.
Nope. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for your time.
Thanks for the work you do.
Absolutely. Thank you. Director Fitchett, we'll move on to the Executive Director report. We should all have it in front of us as well. I'll be thoughtful of the time in keeping in mind the report itself. I just want to acknowledge, I know there was a lot for us to review, but Director Fitchett is going to walk us through the salient important facts here, and then we'll come on the other side here with questions as necessary. Director Fitchett, you have the floor.
I'm going to highlight some of the most important things in the Executive Director's report. On page 1, it's been 35 days since I took this position, and it seems like when January started, we hit the door running, right? And so I've had 9 meetings with community stakeholders. I have met with the district attorney and the Metropolitan Public Defender. Today, I sat with the panel of the Department of Justice experts. and talk and discuss body cams. And I'm going to read over some of these things, and then I'll go back and highlight the most important things. I have a ride-along scheduled with MPD. That was confirmed today, and it is budget season, and I have spent probably the last week working on, with the new requirements for the metropolitan budget, the metrics that they wanted, as well as what our ask was. Our ask this year is going to be just a rental increase, and our rental increase is $17,345.92. We started with a line item of $77,000 for rent, but our rent is actually $92,496. And so we have a deficit of $17,345. And so that will be the ask for the budget this year. We finished our annual report. This is the first draft. I want to say that I believe that this is a draft that needs some work. And I take responsibility for it being late and delayed. Dr. Valier was out. He was kind of spearheading it, and I have been super busy, and I don't think that we sat down and had enough time to collaborate on what we wanted it to include. So there's some things that we need to do to beef it up some. I think that it is in line with what other agencies, police oversight agencies have. I went out and looked at probably 17 cities to see what their annual report looked like, and I think that ours is comparable. And so I think that there's just a few things that we need to do to beef it up, and it will be ready. Because you're just receiving it today, right? That means, and it's due on the 1st to the state. I had Todd check and see if we could get an extension so that we would have time, we wouldn't have a delay, and they did not. There aren't any extensions for this type of stuff, so we have to have this prepared, ready to go by and delivered on the 1st. And so I would welcome your feedback on it. If, in fact, you can't give me that feedback, really quickly, then I think that we should call an executive committee meeting for next week and have the draft, the draft with the corrections, and present it to the executive committee meeting so that we can prepare it and have it sent out by the 1st.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. So we don't need to pause now for comments. We can come back. I do want to speak a bit about the report, though.
Okay. We have the assistant director interviews scheduled. So there are 9 candidates for that. That is scheduled on the 28th. And if any of you would like to be a part of that, I think that we should decide on that today. Attorney Pinkley and I will conduct those interviews, but I am open to a board member being there if you decide that that's what you want to do. We have an intern working in our office, and you'll hear from her in a few minutes. And we changed our open house. We changed that to April the 4th because we just didn't have enough time to prepare and have our office completely open and ready for the public. And so you'll get more information on that. But to go back to the body cam meeting today, I thought the meeting was insightful. I think that the experts listened to my concerns. I went with a list of concerns in regards to what I thought that was important to the community as it pertains to policy, the implementation of body cameras. I wrote out my concerns. They addressed them all. My concerns, they said, weren't unique because they have also heard these same issues as they are, been traveling the country doing the work that they do. I think trust and accountability is one of the main topics that I brought up as it pertains to having community input into the policies. And I wanted them to talk about how they would engage the community as they're creating policy. And then I brought up the concerns that I think that some of the community members have. The development of policy in public, make policy available to the public, and any changes that they create in policy, that it would be made in consultation with the community. Another one was having clear operational policies for recording, the retention, and the access, and enforce strict disciplinary protocols for policy violations. That was another. Adopt systems that monitor and audit access to recorded footage and secure footage against unauthorized access and tampering. That was a concern of mine. And the assurance that the officers will be held accountable for violations of policy and public trust. I think that there should be strong policy on how officers will use the cameras, when they will activate and deactivate the cameras, as well as what is discretionary. Another one was making the body-worn camera footage available to the public and the press, especially to the public. Use of force upon request. I thought that it would be important to a person or a complainant who files a complaint, if they're involved, can they get a copy of their own body camera footage if they're involved in that? And then also the next of kin whose death is related to what is captured on the video footage was important to me as well. Preservation of the independent evidentiary value by not allowing officers to review the footage before they complete incident reports or talk to investigators. That was important to me. Implementation of the community's input and feedback, and not just have more listening sessions and then go about doing things the same way by creating policy that only supports one perspective, but allows people to feel vested in the way they want to be policed. That was important. And ensuring that the body cameras are not being piggybacked with facial recognition technology. So those were my concerns, and those are the things that I brought up today. And that's all I have.
Thank you, Director Fisher. Well, let's start at the executive, at the Community Oversight Annual Report. I appreciate you sharing this with us. And one of the things I didn't include in my chair remarks, I got word last week here while I was out of town here about a reminder rather of this upcoming deadline. So I did pin the letter you see here on the front page here, first page, and I myself need to take some time now that I'm back in Nashville to just go back through that, and I welcome ideas on that as well. For the section where we have the board members, I'd like to ask the board if you have a headshot or a picture that you'd prefer to be listed here, please send that to Director Fisher. Should it be to you or to Dr. Valier? To Brinzy, apologies. To Ms. Thompson, please send that to her. Actually make that an expedited request by, let's say, noon tomorrow, because I certainly don't want us to be behind on the product that you have here. And then let me ask you, the way that certain things are laid out here, and I'd love it if we could find a way to include, you let me know if we talk about the future of the board here, but if it's necessary for this to ensure we got Drew here, let's make sure we can find him here and include him as well. Okay, fantastic. So we need your headshot too, Mr. Goddard, as well. For the staff selection here in hiring, was it just by with their requirement, or just to show kind of the lineage and the process here of how we have it slated here, having Mr. Wheaton and yourself?
I think that we wanted to talk about the transition of the board and how, like, what we have done. So I think that was the reason to have him listed as the first executive director. Is that, am I answering your question?
Yeah, that's my question.
Okay, and so that as we talk about it, like, because for the first 6 months of the board's existence, or
Sure.
from the time that he was,
Our executive director.
Exactly.
Yeah,
So,
and I think you do a great job of that, of including in the language there. I don't think, however, it's necessary to include his bio and or his picture. This section should be led by you as our executive director, and you should be the first picture they see there. So if we could remove
Okay.
that, I think that'd be helpful.
okay.
And the and board, I'm not hogging it all. I only got a couple, and I'm finished here. But on the page 5 here, the image of community oversight for Nashville, is that our logo or our image here on page 5? Or is it, no?
No.
Right, that's what I thought, okay. So, and I get why, I'm asking, when I say our, I mean, is that the, can we ask if there's a more appropriate, like a finer, richer image to use, just so it doesn't look like it's more copy-paste? Yeah, because the pixels are not, I didn't articulate my question, but just so that it's cleaner there in the document.
We can contact them.
That'd be helpful. And then I'm happy to make myself available, and if the executive committee wants to get together, if we find there are more additions we want to make here, revisions or a conversation, we can certainly make time for that. We just would need to have a quick turnaround so that we're not slowing down the process of turning this in on time. So let me go silent here and then yield to the board here, Director Dr. Hildreth, and then we can move to others.
Thank you. Thank you for a great first draft. I have just two observations, starting on the page number 5, the passage of Amendment 1. I do think it's important to note that there were several community organizations in addition to Oversight, the one listed, and I am wondering if it might be appropriate to actually, you know, as one would have on letterhead listing everybody, there is a list that announcements, there is a list that we've actually used as being operative. I believe it was maybe the last meeting or 2 meetings ago when a member from the community actually asked, how are we looking at that list and are we opening it up? But in terms of if page 5 is talking about the history and how we got there, at that time, the list of all the community organizations that the applications were sent to and everybody, it may be appropriate to honor all of those. Or maybe a more objective and clear inclusion would be every community organization that nominated one of the, like the original 100 and change, you know, first applications. Are you following what I'm saying? How do we get everybody named? I would like for the executive committee to take that up as you were fine-tuning it. The second thing that I would like to mention is on when the members are listed on page 8, I would like very much to see terms or the dates of the terms underneath each individual. We think about what an annual report is and what it's for and what its function is. And so part of that may actually be tracking who's on there, how long are they going to be there, what category are they in, do we need to be gearing up and being ready for the next thing. I find that there's not enough operative information in here about who the members are and what's needed for that purpose. And those would be my 2 recommendations with gratitude. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Hildreth. Mr. Campbell-Gooch?
I have more general questions about the numbers, so I don't want to get that. That's on page like 20, so if anybody
Okay.
has anything before that, so we can keep it in chronological order.
Okay.
Yep.
Dr. Lewis?
I think the report looks really good, too. I was impressed when you said it was just a draft. I was like, oh, it looks good to me. However, on page 8, I was community nominated. I think that Mr. Holloway was council nominated, if I'm not mistaken. And then on page 27, and I don't know, Metro PD may use the term vehicle extraction, but I would double check because it's probably extrication. And if that's what MMPD calls it, that's what they call it, but it should be extrication. Thanks. Yeah.
Ms. Ross?
Spell check, page 18, complaint, and I haven't been able to read through the whole thing. You know, I look for spelling errors, so I'll review that later.
I'm sorry, I thought of a third thing. I guess I'm not
Thank you, Ms.
adequately
Ross.
medicated. Also, I think it might be nice to include the text of Amendment 1, if that's not in there somewhere. What do y'all think about that?
It's a great idea.
Yeah, there are some things that as I looked through it, that I think Amendment 1, our mission and vision statements aren't included. We had talked about that after we produced it, and that we were going to have to get that stuff added. And so, yeah, that's a great idea. I thought that would be good to have in there.
Thank you. And let's be thoughtful about it this way. We are all just getting this. And Mr. Campbell-Gooch, I'm not cutting you short here, so if you still want to talk about numbers, you certainly can. Today is Wednesday. let's all just be dutiful and about reviewing this, to Ms. Ross's point about taking some time looking at it, and offer our feedback, revisions, ideas. Let's plan for, let's say, 3 o'clock Friday. Can we send a reminder out to the board for that? And that way, it gives you a few hours before the end of the day on Friday, but also prepares us before the executive committee meeting the following week, where we can receive anything that the board wants to share, because I myself am just kind of scanning through the pages, but I'd want to give it a real thoughtful review there. Does that work for everyone, 3 o'clock Friday? Okay.
That's for
Mr. Holloway?
the entire board.
Yes, sir. Yes, yeah. So
Okay.
you'll have the time, and you just email Director Fitchard, any, page by page, if you have suggestions or revisions.
It's not a meeting.
Okay.
Oh, you mean the meeting, I'm sorry. Yeah, just the deadline to send your email.
Okay, it'd be fine. I do better without my glasses on. So we'll get it corrected.
You do it however you need to, Mr. Holloway. That's all right with us. I understand. Mr. Kamaguchi, you want to share anything with that in mind? there?
Yeah, just a couple things that I'm just curious about, and you don't have to answer these. I'm just curious about them. On page 20, when we talk about the graph where we see investigations in 2019, so I have two questions. One, why no complaints in April, right? And then the spike in September. Those are just general questions. And then the ones where we talk about the 17 complaints that were outside of MNCO's jurisdiction. I'm curious about where those are.
Okay.
And then also, I think this is really big picture. We know that these things happen spatially in specific areas. So if we can get some type of map layout, I know that's difficult to do, and I know that takes GIS software, but I think that would help paint a clearer picture, especially for community members, on where these isolated events are happening. Therefore,
That's a good
if we
idea.
have something pulling in one area, we know we can direct our attention there.
Let me respond to that. I do believe in planning, they do have a map where they record incidents and stuff that happen in a certain part of the city to make it easier for you, especially on the crime rate for us, it's robbery, sex crimes, and that type of nature. So if you can talk with them, it'll make it easier for you.
Thank you for that. Hey, we have Liz, and she does GIS as well. She is a map expert, so I call her expert. Okay, so we can get that on. I think that's a fantastic idea. I want to talk about when you talked about the first thing. Your first point is why nothing in April. In April, of course, Mr. Whedon had just come in, right? And so I don't think that anyone even knew how to file a complaint. And so the spike in September is because that was when we began to really, Dr. Valier was hired, and we began to take good notes and track what we were doing. And so that is why you see that, that spike. And then your question about the 17 complaints that were out of jurisdiction, those were time jurisdiction issues. Those were issues that pertain to people who had complaints in like 2018, 2016, 2017. And so we didn't start taking complaints until April the 1st of 2019. So when they called with their issues, we tried to, be as kind as we could, and tell them that the only thing that we could do was refer them back to either OPA or those police precincts, because we could not investigate their cases because they happened prior to April 1, 2019.
So,
Mr.
I
Kamaguchi.
just have one follow-up. So now I'm curious about when we take in, are we, the numbers around, we taking in complaints that are not in Metro? Now I'm curious about that. Like if that ever happens, and if it does, what are the numbers?
So we, of course, don't have case management installed at this point, but we have I think that we're going to have IA Pro. We decided to go with that, which will track all of our cases in just a very clear and concise way. We have had several cases that were for instance, I took a call and was on the phone 45 minutes with a person that the incident happened in Maury County. And so we did track that, but there was nothing that I could do to assist the person, even though the person that, her loved one was from Davidson County. It was still out of our jurisdiction because the incident occurred in Maury County. But we are tracking that. We have a case log of how we track that. And I'm not sure if the numbers are in here. That's something that we can talk about to add those in. I think that what we talked about earlier today in our team meeting was that we are going to put text with these numbers, right? So that when you see the final draft, instead of just saying 33 complaints, there'll be some text involved in explaining what those complaints look like. It'll be beefed up some to give you clear explanations that when you're looking at the charts, you also have context. And so that's what we decided to do. We just didn't have time to brainstorm and get all that done before this meeting.
Thank you, Director Fisher. Mr. Holloway.
We're talking about incidents that we didn't have recorded between January and April, because, like I said, we weren't really in existence then, but things did happen, but we just didn't have the relationship that we have now with OPA, sharing information with us at that time. Things probably did occur, but we just didn't have access to it. Now that we got mutual understanding that we're going to work as a team, we can get a better data on what's going on in the city.
Thank you, Mr. Holloway. I think we've concluded on the related to the report here. We know, Director Fitchett, if you wouldn't mind, again, sending that awareness and update for everyone. And I know now we need to ensure we are updated, our email address to include Mr. Goddard here as well. That would be fantastic. The hiring, there's just one more thing we need to talk about, and then we'll move away from the executive director report. I want the board to have an opportunity to express their opinion here. If we have an interest in nominating someone to participate as a silent observer in the assistant director interviews, I believe we've talked about this before, 2 or 3 meetings ago. But we agreed to come back to this if there was interest in this. I understand you have on the calendar for the 28th, January 28th, when all 9 candidates will come in the same day, or?
It will be conference.
Video conference. Will this be the first round or final round?
The first round.
First round, with the intention of slimming down the pool of candidates to 3 or for? Top 2 or 3, and then they would come in, fly in, or depending on their locality, and for the final round, right? Okay. So that's helpful. So to the board here, just because you did raise it, is there any interest or conversation here anyone would like to have? Or are we prepared and comfortable with moving forward without COB representation on that?
I would like to be a volunteer to sit in on the interview.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Holloway. So as a board, are we saying that I want to first answer the question of yes, do we believe it's necessary to have a representative there? Because I believe we answered that question, and then we put forth a representative. So I'm fine with whatever the case is. I just want to make sure we're doing it in the right order here. Assuming we are fine with that? All right. I take silence as agreement. Okay, so let me just be clear, thank you, Mr. Holloway, for agreeing to participate in this. This will be the first round. And as I understand it, he would, as Mr. Campbell-Gooch and Ms. Ross participated last time, you would be attending, but they would not be able to ask questions per what Ms. Hall shared with us. Am I right about that?
No.
Oh, go ahead. I just want to be clear.
We can ask questions, but we can't make the decision.
Can't ask questions, but can't be a part of the decision-making, Mr. Campbell.
And it's the same question for every applicant.
Okay, to be fair, and that makes perfect sense. Okay, well, thank you. Director Fisher? Yeah? Were you?
Well, I have a list of the questions, and we'll start there. That first interview, you have to ask the same questions.
Same questions. Okay, perfect. That's fine. Thank you. So with that, is there a motion for Mr. Holloway to serve as our representative for the Assistant Director role.
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Campbell-Gooch. In 1 second.
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Ross. With that, any focused discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Nay. Abstention. The motion carries. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Holloway. With that, if there's nothing else, Director Fitchett, we should discuss on the Executive Director report, we'll move to Community Needs Assessment Proposal. Who will that be led by, yourself or someone else? Director.
That's going to be led by Dr. Valier.
Dr. Valier. Excellent. Welcome. Good to see you all.
All right, thank you. So one of the things that when I came on to MNCO that I thought was very important was to have a community needs assessment, right? So as a new department and as a new board, you all are representing community, but we also want to make sure that we are reaching out to community and really intentionally trying to understand community needs and actively engaging in a process that'll help us determine where we should go in the future. So I was very lucky. You may all may have met Ms. Briefs. She's a master's student at Vanderbilt in the Community Development Action Department, and she is coming on as a practicum student to work with us and help us work on a community needs assessment. So one of the first things I asked her to do was develop a proposal for the board. She started last week, and so I threw her right in to a week later having a proposal, and she did a great job putting it together. So I'd like to ask her to tell you a little bit about her plans around the needs assessment just for a moment, and then let you ask any questions that you have.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for having me. As Dr. Valier said, I'm a student at Peabody College at Vanderbilt. I study community development and action in the Department of Human and Organizational Development. I teach at the university as well as a teaching assistant, and as some of you may know, I am an active member of the community in nonprofit organizations and grassroots organizing as well. I am particularly excited about this project. I walked right up to Dr. Valier myself and just asked if I could work with him because it's such exciting work. I am learning and really working in a department that specializes in community-based participatory research, which is the most community-based type of applied research that you can do. And so basically there's different stages of community and applied research, but this is sort of the most in-depth where community members have equal partnership. So the idea here is that community members have just as much equity in the decisions that are made, the questions that are asked in the communities, the way that the material is presented, et cetera. So this needs proposal is really aimed to address the resources that are already existent in the community, all of the positive work that the three bodies are doing, and then the gaps in the processes.
Ms. Priest, congratulations. That's fantastic. Welcome as well. It's great to see a familiar face and active voice. And so welcome to the MNCO family. That's fantastic.
Thank you.
So I'm happy to answer any questions that you have. I think one of the motivators for this is I know there's been quite, leading up to some of the important work that's happened in the community, there's been a lot of space for community voices. And that's really what I think drives the most important research forward. And I would like for our work to be as impactful as possible. And I think this is an important piece to get to that place where our work is really addressing community needs. And we don't know what we don't know. And I think this is how I think one strategy to fill those gaps of what we don't know.
Thank you. Any questions or comments here, Mr. Sweeney? Mm-hmm.
How do you envision using this information that's derived as a practical matter within the scope of what the COB and the MNCO do?
So I think there's a variety of ways to use the information. We will be collecting different types of information. So we've been talking about using listening sessions, surveying people who come to those, having focus groups, interviews, doing an organizational survey. So all types of different information. And all of that can be synthesized into better understanding what the community priorities are. So what are the priorities of the people they want for research from the board. So what are the roles that they think that the board should be filling that it may or may not be right now? I'd like for the final report to be something that is useful to both our department as well as the board, right? So everybody is able to see what are some ways forward. So that's how we'll be using it, and the final report, I think, should be a very helpful document as we're looking ahead to where we're going. So we've been internally and have presented with you all a plan, a 3-year plan. And this is part of continuing that vision and making sure that our 3-year plan is lined up with the priorities of the community.
Mr. Sweeney.
As you know from the public sessions you've attended so far, we have not successfully reached deeply into the community, or as deeply into the community as we would like, as far as getting feedback. Will this also be an aid to us in figuring out how we can most deeply engage the community to get feedback when we are looking for feedback or when people want to bring ideas to us?
Absolutely. I think there's a lot of barriers for people accessing government services. And as I said recently to someone, we are the government now. And there's a lot of barriers that come from people interacting with us. And I think one of the things that we can really do is focus on what are those barriers. How can we really enhance people's trust in us as a Metro government department, in the board as a entity of community members who are working for the community and volunteering for the community. And so I think that's an important piece of trying to understand how we can really engage in ways that people will resonate with community members and really have that deep impact on building trust. You know, we talk a lot about mistrust in police, and one of the ways that we can really better understand that is by working with communities most impacted and finding ways that we can try to build that trust. And so that's going to be a major priority.
Thank you. Dr. Hildreth.
Thank you. This is excellent and important work, particularly for the reasons that Member Sweeney mentions. My caution and my hope is that we will understand that sometimes the barriers are the actual institutions of inquiry, that we all sit in systems that are impacted by histories of some institutions making inquiry upon other communities and certain interpretations ensuing and detrimental consequences therefrom. So I am just hoping that we will also find ways to incorporate the best principles of community-based participatory research so that if you are a team of 2, there may be others who are brought into the team to create the inquiry instruments, the persons who will be going into the community. I would like to suggest that our local institutions, particularly our historically Black colleges and universities, thinking about folks who do community-based participatory research. So a first start would be at Meharry and their persons in the departments of public health and to TSU and so forth. And so love the start, but being mindful of the history, can we also make sure that we start off with the design that is designed to dismantle those things that we seek to address? Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Hildreth. Any other comments, questions related to the assessment proposal? If not, thank you very much. Welcome, Ms. Briefs, again. Dr. Villiers, as always, thank you very much. If there's any final comments you have, you're welcome to as well.
No.
Okay. Thank you very much. Oh, and we have it in front of us? Yep. No, I do not. So we do have, does everyone have this in front of them? The community needs assessment proposal?
It was sent in the material.
Oh, right. I don't have a printed out copy in front of me. So let's do this here. I'll be honest, I'm not comfortable doing something I've not read here. Let me ask this question, though. Does everyone have a copy in front of them? No. Okay, and you may not have an electronic copy as well. Let me ask you this, Dr. Valier, while you all are in front of us. Will it hold either you or Ms. Briefs up on the work that's currently being done if we do not take a vote tonight?
We would continue to lay the groundwork for it. So we will continue working toward this, assuming that it will be approved at the next meeting. So.
Okay. That's helpful. So I'm open to ideas here, and for the future, let's do this. If there is something that needs to, the board needs to review that for approval at the board meeting, we should send that as a separate attachment, right? So if there's, something like the sort of this or proposal, especially if we have an attachment that's, kind of heavy to where folks may not get an opportunity to read thoroughly through it. Let's operate under that assumption. We'll come back in February. We'll add this to the agenda for approval here, and that way everyone has had the opportunity to review it as well. Let's pause here. I see Mr. Sweeney here. Happy to acknowledge you there.
Along the lines of what you said as far as separately sending something over where it's an action item, can we ask that the agenda specifically note an action item, that it requires a vote? And that way everybody will be best alerted.
To review. Thank you, Mr. Sweeney. Dr. Lewis?
Or could we just make sure that maybe we all have a printed copy of it?
So I think we've talked about that and tried to kind of sway away from that, considering, like for instance, this time around, how heavy the print would be for 105 times 11 of us or 10 of us, depending on the body. But I think also there's been the option of if you as a member say, hey, I would prefer to have a printed copy, I myself keep my iPad up for that reason. I think it makes a lot of sense to say that as well. And so perhaps as members, we should just opt in or opt out, if that's helpful.
Ask that question, who wants their items printed?
That would be helpful. Thank you, Director Fisher.
Print that action items, that's, it's just that particular item.
Yeah, I think it's twofold. I think we're talking about the actual report that's sent out. There are certain folks who would prefer to have that in hand, but then also if it's an action item, perhaps, especially if it's something as, like one pager of the proposal, it's probably easier to just have one on hand as well. So we can certainly take that up again, but that's a good suggestion. Dr. Hildreth.
Thank you. Combining both recommendations, I would need to see an action item if it's prepared on the agenda before, so I can look to see if there's a box or an asterisk. And then if we are to take action here, I will need a hard copy of the matters that are being reviewed upon which action is being requested in that moment. So trying to be respectful, yes, I would almost rather not have a copy of the draft report since we weren't going to take action. I could look at that at my leisure. But something that you're asking me to think about and make a vote on, I do need to have in paper. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Hildreth. Thank you, Director Fisher. Thanks to you all as well. We'll be prepared to take a vote in February, and if, quite frankly, if there's a readout and you could share with us a little bit of update of what's happened over the last month, that'd be incredible as well. Thank you very much. We are going to move to Dr. Valier. Anything else?
No, but if you were able to move to body cameras instead of immigration.
Do you have a time constraint? Is that what you?
I do.
Okay, give me one moment. I got one thing I want to do before we move to that, and we can happily move to A subsection 2. Before we move to that, I was sitting here and I'm thinking of something I didn't do, Mr. Goddard. I did not give you the opportunity to just greet. Dr. Villa, you stay with us. Don't move that far away. If you would please just introduce yourself to the board. I think that would be incredible to hear from you directly as we can hear your voice and hear your perspective. That'd be great. You have the mic.
All right. I am fully cognizant of the fact that I'm the most ignorant person on the board, but I hope to catch up before too much longer. I'm Drew Goddard. I'm from East Tennessee, but have been in Nashville for 41 years since graduating law school. I practiced with the same law firm, doing different things. Most of my work has been environmental work on the business side. My father and uncle and grandfather were lawyers. I grew up hearing a lot about justice, concerned a lot about justice. I spent a lot of time talking to Bob Cooper, who was down the hall from me when he served on the board, and learned a lot about the board from that, had an interest. I think that may have had something to do with how I got asked to be on the board. I'm very much looking forward to serving on this board. I think, as I understand it, part of the board's mission as specific issues and specific incidents come up is to try to understand the facts and do justice in those situations, determine what is fair. But I'm very happy to hear that much of what the board's doing appears to be seeing what systems are in place, what directions and rules are in place for policing, what areas don't have rules in place, and have some community significant thought and engagement with the police department, and hopefully agreement on things that will improve how those rules affect policing within those rules affect the community, to the end of having as fair and as just a system of policing as possible. And a police force that is empowered to do that and well understands what the community needs for that, if that makes sense.
Thank you very much, Mr. Goddard. It occurs to me this is the first time we've had a new person join the board. So we certainly have not set out our orientation plan, but we've got a great leader here, and so we'll ensure you get a copy of the bylaws and rules so that you are prepared and can catch right up. And if it is helpful to you, what we found very helpful is when we came in new, that we asked a ton of questions, both here outwardly, but of the staff as well as it was being built out. And while the Sunshine Law rather does kind of prohibit us, we can't have gatherings at a restaurant or connect together unless it's open. One thing that might be helpful is, even though we will have an executive committee meeting, but for you to just come and see what the dialogue is like there as well. And so we'll make sure we send that date and time to you so you can just see the procedures there. But welcome. There's lots of work to be done, and we certainly look forward to welcoming you. And I see our second fearless leader there, Mr. Pinkley there, so I'll yield to him.
I was just going to say, I've got new member orientation materials, so I can get these to you right now, I guess. So.
I told you we're good. That was an alley-oop. He does it.
Thank you all very much.
Yes, sir. Welcome. Mr. Sweeney.
Similar to the question that we considered when Dr. Hildreth was going to be our negotiator, as far as briefing her on the background of matters, I presume that there is no open meetings issue as far as a board member providing background and briefing Mr. Goddard as far as what we have done or has gotten us to this place, and so that he could make inquiry of any of the board members as to those matters. Would you concur in that, Mr. Pinkley?
So based on the conversation that we had with Mr. Pope at the Open Records Council, as long as it's informational, I don't think there would be an issue.
Okay. And therefore, I think Mr. Goddard is free to contact anyone. Anyone is free to contact him just to fill in the blanks and provide background information.
That's a great point. Thank you, Mr. Sweeney. Happy to do that, and I'll make sure I reach out to you quickly as well, Mr. Goddard.
I will take advantage of that.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
That's great. Thank you, Mr. Sweeney. With that, we'll move to subcommittee reports and readout, and we'll start with the body-worn camera policy subcommittee that Dr. Valier led, along with the engagement and leadership of Mr. Campbell Gooch. And so we welcome the two of you, Dr. Valier.
All right, thank you again. So following the body-worn camera report, we held a listening session on January 7th, which Mr. Campbell Gooch led, and I'm thankful that several board members were able to attend as well. Mr. Campbell Gooch, would you like to talk a little bit about the listening session?
Yes, and excuse me because I don't have my notes prepared, but the listening session pretty much, I mean, me and Peter, Dr. Valier talked about this before. The community members are just really urgent about getting these body cameras in place, especially since they've been approved over 1,000 days ago at this point. And so we got a lot of inquiry around information, and I think at this point people are showing up to the policy reviews to learn, right? So although we did not have a lot of public comment, we had people here, and the people here wanted to just know information. And so I wanted to make sure I brought that to this board because the teacher in me wants to workshop the reviews and then get people's responses. Because especially since I think we've been doing a very good job of securing transparency with this board. So we have a level of trust with the community that I think other metro bodies do not have. And so with that, I think there's a major opportunity to teach people and to give them the facts that we have found.
Thank you, Mr. Campbell-Gooch. Dr. Villier?
Yeah, so I agree. We heard from a number of community members, and one of the central feedback that we got was that the costs have been ever increasing, the time ever longer, and that there's quite a bit of community concern about the speed of implementation. Based on new events also that have happened since we released the report was updated with new information that's come out. We also received feedback from Mr. Sweeney, which was incorporated into the document, and Mr. Sweeney offered quite a few very good suggestions of how to improve the report. We produced a document for both reports, the immigration and the body-worn cameras report, that highlights the suggestions that were made, as well as the revisions that were made, if we made revisions. And in the cases where we did not make revisions based on a suggestion, we discussed why we did not make revisions. So we wanted to be as transparent as possible as a process of how we went from the original into the final product. So you should have in front of you, or in your packet should be the revisions that were made to the report. Only one recommendation was changed in the body-worn camera report, and that was recommendation 4 for the mayor. And this was based off of a recommendation to be a little more specific on the number of cameras, and so we revised the report to say that that the number should be adjusted in the initial deployment based on, in consultation with the DA, public defender, criminal courts, and expert technical advisors. And we added to the report some detail about some of the cost benefits of the numbers, particularly around if we're trying to assess the costs associated in the criminal justice system with having body-worn cameras. We need enough information coming in to actually be able to estimate the costs. And so there's a trade-off between time, the amount of time it'll take to collect enough data, and the ability to implement, right? So there's a trade-off between getting the data and how long it'll take, right? So if we have more cameras, it'll take less time. If we have less cameras, it'll take more time in order to just be able to run this beta phase. Are there any questions that you all have on any of the revisions?
Mr. Holloway?
You really got to look at the situation, whether what value do you place on human life? Then you got to look at do you have children? If that's my child or my daughter being gunned down. So the price is not an issue. We need a preventive measure, and cameras is what we need. Not no 40 camera. If you're doing work on the street in uniform, you need cameras. It'll prevent money in the long run if you get in a lawsuit.
Thank you, Mr. Holloway. Any additional comments, questions related to the body-worn camera policy revisions offered by Dr. Villier, Mr. Campbell-Gooch?
And I will say, Mr. Holloway's statement that he just made is the general consensus of the community, and that's the general responses that we've gotten. And at this point, even with the report and how it was released, there's an urgent nature about the next step, right? So the questions that I'm receiving are not about body cams, they're about the policies at this point. What laws do I need to know about? Like, if there's a police officer with a body cam, what do I need to do to protect myself in a situation where the footage could be used against me in a court of law, especially when it comes to violating my probation? So I'm getting things of that nature at this point in time, because we know that if the policies are not made in a way that regulates the body cameras for what they're meant to be, then they'll just turn into something else. And so there's a lot of concern around it. And also when it comes to the numbers, I think we know that in order to solve these issues, what we need is well-resourced families. So when it comes to the numbers, it feels like from community members, why does it cost so much? And also, why isn't some of that reinvested into our areas to actually solve the problem? You see what I'm saying? There's been a lot of conversation around front-end accountability. How can we actually stop the thing versus alleviating it, which makes it just feel less hurtful? So I just wanted to put a pin in that, because I think at this point, there's a lot of urgency and irritation when it comes to the body camera issue.
Thank you, Mr. Campbell-Gooch. Director Fitchard.
I want to address something that Mr. Gooch brought up in regards to the community and education on what's happening as in regards to policy. In the meeting that I had today, General Funk and the mayor's office thought it would be helpful that sometime coming up in maybe sometime middle February or the end of February, maybe sometime the end of March, but hopefully in February that we would partner together and talk about the policies and what, and just verbiage in regards to body cameras, right? What does redaction actually look like? What does it mean? And so we haven't worked that out. That was just something that was brought up today. And so once I get more information about that, I'll be able to share it with the board. But that is something that we will discuss further in regards on how we can partner to make sure that our community members are well informed about what's happening.
Thank you, Dr. Fitchard. Ms. Ross.
Ms. Fitchard, who was in the meeting today? What metro agencies? Because my understanding it was invitation only and that the community will be informed somewhere in March. So who was in the meeting today and yesterday?
So we had, I wasn't invited to the meeting yesterday. I think that was dealing strictly with the criminal justice stakeholders. That included law enforcement. The group from the Department of Justice, they on yesterday, they met with the police department, the public defender, and the district attorney's office. Today, those 5 men, including the mayor's office, Mr. Bunton, was in the meeting. The district attorney was in a meeting, the public defender, and then myself and Peter. And there was one other person who handles, I don't know her name, but she was there, and she works with the judges. And so she does technology with the judges I guess she was there as an observer.
So to your knowledge, the community was not involved yesterday or today?
That's correct. The community was not involved.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any additional questions, comments here? If not, thank you very much, Dr. Valier. Thank you. We will move on to the local law enforcement policies and immigration enforcement action subcommittee unless there's anything additional here.
Was the intent to have the board approve the policy report today?
So the intent was that to have the board approve for release the final version of the policy report. If there's more that needs to happen around figuring out process, that is, I think, is an important conversation that we have around what the process is. I think particularly with reports in the future, we are looking at releasing reports in March and April. So there are, I think, ongoing conversations that could be had here or at an executive committee meeting about that process. But the intent was to have the revisions
approved here by the board.
Got it. If that's the will of the board.
Right. Thank you. That's clear. So, and this will follow the same suit here, right? We're going to follow the same procedure here, and that's fine. We're learning. Well, we will send all of these documents that need to be approved, reviewed, and approved by the board as one document, right? So we'll just include it in a sub-bullet. We know that we want the needs assessment proposal. Also here with the revisions that have been shared with us. And so what would be incredibly helpful is that instead of this being one document for the future, let's just think about April, I'm moving 2 months ahead. Instead of having one document that's just all of the attachments, have the executive director report, and then as our other board members have pointed out, each one of the documents that we need to review for approval as well. Because we're not in a position right now to offer a thoughtful review and approval of the documents, especially of the report here that we have in front of us. But we can be and will be positioned to do that in the month of February. Welcome other thoughts from the board if you think differently on that. Mr. Sweeney.
I don't think differently, but I'd like to share some comments that I've shared previously with Mr. Valier and with Director Fitchard regarding this policy. I think one of the things that's unique about this board is the power that it has to make policy recommendations. There aren't many other boards that have that power or that ability. And I believe that if it's done right, this will be our power, and this will be our legacy. Then it poses the question of how do you go about it, especially when you have issues of urgency, you know, in order to cover what you need to cover, but do it through the right sort of process. I think it's important for us all to recognize that we don't have any expertise here, okay? We have researchers. We all have our own personal experience, but nobody looks at the COB and say, these people are experts on these particular subjects. And we need to develop over time that expertise so that people will look at us and can take our own policy recommendations based upon what we know and what we've done, because they recognize our professionalism and our power and all like that. We have great researchers. We have people who understand the various subjects and compile the information well. But as we approach this, I think it's important for the board to embrace that this is board policy recommendations. This is not staff policy recommendations. And therefore, we each as board members must be engaged not only just broadly in the body-worn cameras policies, but in each specific policy recommendation that's there with the multiple ones, and to go through and critically look at them and say, what is the background of this? What is the authority? Who else does something like this? Who has considered this before and found it to be effective or ineffective? And when there are policies like some of these here, where we're talking about what the police department is doing or has done or hasn't done, but they're actual policies, why do they have those policies? Why have they done what they've done before? What was the reason for it? Do we know their purported justification for it that might be different from our presumption from looking at rules? So how do we engage them? What do our professional organizations say? What does NACOL say about any of these particular subjects? What is the organization that certifies the police department here and their policies and their procedures say about this? Okay? And to go through that process so that we can lay out for each policy recommendation what it is that's been considered, that's been weighed, who has the expertise, how have we considered that, have we accepted it, have we rejected it, is it old information, is it new information, who's on the cutting edge, and that kind of thing, so that when we present it, if somebody disagrees with us, they have to then justify their disagreement with all of this supported information. Rather than coming back and say, well, you say, and I know we've changed on this, but you say there should be X number of cameras rather than 24. Well, where's your number come from? Why is your number any better than our number? And we have to be able to answer that type of thing. And that's one of the reasons, of course, that's led to the revisions of what was in the report. You know, or when we get to the immigration report, we have it there too. We had a proposal at once that we wanted all the forms that somebody was going to sign to waive anything to be translated into whatever their normative language is here, which in the school system is 150 languages. You know? Now, again, we've adjusted, we've looked, and we've seen what other people have done, and we cut it back to 5 languages. But how do we go through that process and have it supported, and then go through the vetting process once we have, you know, kind of checked the various standards that we think are important for whatever policy? You know, we have very limited time here at the board meetings. We don't, unless we have a special meeting on each policy recommendation, which may be appropriate, we don't have the time at a regular board meeting to vet a policy proposal like this. So maybe we should have a standing policy committee which is charged with vetting any of the policy proposals. And then they make a recommendation to the board that either the board have a full board meeting, special meeting to consider policy, a particular policy, or that it's of a more, you know, different type, where the committee feels that it's been fully vetted and they can just recommend to the board that it be considered for some lesser period of time, half an hour, 20 minutes, something, where there's time to discuss it, but it comes on a full-throated recommendation, you know, of the committee. So I think that we need a formal process by which it should be considered, I think, rather than just, you know, taking it up at the next board meeting. And because especially our first couple policies, we need to, for lack of a better description on that, we need to win on those. Okay? Because if somebody tags us and say, you know, they're putting out things that they believe and that the community is interested in, but they're not fully vetting and they're not coming up with anything that is clearly persuasive beyond what's already being done, then we get tagged as somebody who has recommendations that can be easily rejected. And we don't want to do that. Not to say that our first couple recommendations are going to be embraced. They may not be. But that's how come it's very, very important that those policies be so persuasive that anybody who's objective looks at it and says, well, of course it should have been accepted.
Right.
Establishing the power and the professionalism of the board. So I think that's a worthy discussion about the process that we want to go through and how we want to consider these things.
Thank you, Mr. Sweeney. I appreciate you sharing that and all the points there. Let me yield to Dr. Lewis.
I agree with what you're saying. I think we need to be really strong on our policies. I would vote against having a policy committee because that's just one more step removed. And I know all of us, our time is valuable to us, but I think this is important enough that we should devote a board meeting to each policy, would be my proposal based on what you just said.
Thank you, Dr. Lewis. Dr. Hildreth.
Thank you. I really appreciate the clarity that Member Sweeney brings in. As I was listening to him, I was hearing an analytical framework, rubric being articulated. What's the statement of the case? How is this being handled in other jurisdictions? What is the data under it? I would find it very helpful as a board member, and let us say that probably for 90% of the policies that would become before us, I'm not going to be a subject matter expert. And if I'm going to be a good board member, I'm going to need to bring myself up to speed. It would be very helpful. It almost feels like being in first-year law school again. But here's the thing about first-year law, and I think I have colleagues who will agree. There was sort of a clear rubric with, you know, IRAC, issue, rule, application, conclusion. You knew what parts you were going to look at and go down. There was a way to guide the self-learning. I'm going to agree with Member Lewis that maybe having a standard policy committee creates another layer I would like to suggest a middle ground. I would ask that we stand up a policy committee to help us inaugurate the way in which we can formulate, consider, and vote on policy. I would like for the work of this policy task force maybe to include coming up with the analytical rubric, a written template for the proposed policy so that as I am scanning, I'm a busy board member, I know what's coming on this meeting, I know how to read the camera policy, I'm going to see the same things in the same places as I do with the immigration, same things in the same places, that then there be a discussion and review process so that we can maybe poll in advance our, well, no, we can't do that, violating, thinking out loud on camera, always fun. With the other formats in place, then maybe there's a way to drill down in the meeting and know what it is we're going to be focusing on, what is either most contentious or most confusing or requires something else. Because it may be on the first meeting when we meet, we need to call in a subject matter expert to come in and testify before us to give us some clarity on what's the difference between having a body camera on all the time, but then the officer has to go into the hospital, and then we have HIPAA violations of the camera going past all these other uninformed, right? How do we get educated on that coming up quickly? I do think that the policy committee task force could probably drill down in that, come up with the curriculum scope. We agree on that, and then we can abide by that going forward. We probably do need to recognize that if we're going to do this deeply and going to do this well, it will take a minimum of 3 or 4 meetings to do it. Does that mean it takes a minimum of 3 or 4 months? No, because of urgency. Think about what we did a year ago. Some of us don't want to. We have PTSD. We used to meet every week, and then every other week for meetings that were 4 or 5 or 6 hours long. If we are worried about somebody, our families, Member Holloway, being shot and killed, and it is that urgent to us, and there is no cost on it, then maybe it's time for some 5-hour meetings again. And maybe we do that 2 weeks in a row until we nail it and we understand it, but we won't be doing so in a willy-nilly fashion because we'll actually be following a curricular template that we created. So we'll know when it begins, what's the middle, and what's the end. I think it's worth looking at and doing some work on. So that would be my recommendation. I'd be happy to frame that in a motion if you all would like. Thank you.
Please. Well, okay.
I'm a little confused. We had a policy and rules committee, and we met very often to come up with the policies and procedures. We all committed ourselves to the Community Oversight Board in terms of we knew what it would take and the time it would take. And a lot of us have spent many hours in the last year working on policy and procedure, memorandum of understanding. So I think that we need to go back to what worked well. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Ross. Mr. Campbell-Gooch?
I totally agree with all been said, but I wanted to see if Dr. Phillips will put that in a motion.
Dr. Hildreth?
The ice bucket challenge. All right. I move that the board create a policy promulgation committee charged with the task of 1, designing an analytical rubric for an issue that will be subject of potential policy promulgation. 2, will create a written template by which all policies that are promulgated are written and passed and published. And 3, will create or suggest discussion protocols for consideration of the subject of the policies being promulgated, being discussed by the full board. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Hildreth. Thank you, Dr. Hildreth, for the motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Campbell-Gooch. Focused discussion. Any questions related to the motion here? As chair, I have a few here, just one or two. I just want to be clear. We talked about moving with, expeditiously here. It's the idea that this newly formed body would convene quickly so that the framework is available for the board to then come back and be ready for action. And I'm just thinking, can we just talk about timeline so that I'm clear?
Yes, thank you. So this is something that we need to do in the next week or 2 weeks. So, however we can, probably if this motion passes, then there need to be nominations or volunteers to serve on that committee. That committee should decide to meet within the next 10 business days. And that committee probably can accomplish those things, figuring out what the analytical rubric is, right? Because if we go back and listen to the tape, Member Sweeney did the first draft in his first comments, probably. The written template, the format, maybe we look at the best of the 2 drafts that we already have. Other things, certainly we would need a section to talk about cross-reference legislation, either in this jurisdiction or other jurisdictions, things like that, but that can be done. And then the 3rd bullet is probably most important, and when we talk about the discussion and review process, that committee could talk about what it would take to move us into a moment where we may need to meet every other week and carve out a minimum of time for the meeting based on the need to get this work done by a time certain. So this committee, the Promulgation Committee, could set that up. Once it's set up, the Promulgation Committee could actually sunset, and then we just move into doing it. It becomes another one of our board policies, and we do it. That if the desire to create a policy gets triggered, so we probably need to put in a trigger provision. What is it that the executive director would listen from her staff, listen from the community meetings, everything, and says, we got a trigger. We need to promulgate a policy. And then when that happens, this protocol goes into place. You don't need another committee to do it. It just starts happening.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you for answering my question. Mr. Holloway.
All that sounds great, but look, now what that had to do with them working with the police department with the body cameras? What policy you come up with, are the police department going to abide by? They already working on something already now. Now, you come up with a new policy. We don't run the police department. We're trying to work together with them.
Thank you, Ms. Holloway. Dr. Hildreth.
No, sir, this wasn't to have a new policy. This is to get the policy that they've worked on passed. We're right here at an impasse saying, we have kicked the can down the road saying, well, we're not ready to vote on it today because I don't know what it says and I don't have it, so let's do it next week. This is to make sure we don't get into that situation again. That when they come before us and they've done the legwork and we're ready to go, we have a policy that says, yes, we know how to support you and move expeditiously as a board.
That's great. I didn't hear that part at first. Now we got to understand.
Thank you, Mr. Holloway. Thank you, Dr. Hildreth. Any additional questions in this or comments here in the focus discussion? If not, we'll take the vote, and I will let's do a call here just so I can be very clear. So all those in favor, and I'll go in order of how we're listed here. Mr. Holloway? Aye. Thank you. Chief Turner? Thank you, Chief Turner. Mr. Sweeney? Thank you. Dr. Lewis? Thank you. Dr. Hildreth? Thank you. Mr. Martinez? Thank you. Mr. Campbell-Gooch? Ms. Ross? Thank you. Mr. Goddard? Thank you very much. And I, as your chair, vote aye as well. The motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much. Thank you as well to Mr. Sweeney. Thank you for your energy, efforts in guiding us. And Dr. Hildreth, thank you for helping us with the kick the can down the road approach too. I appreciate that. Let's thank you, Dr. Valier. We appreciate you. We're going to move swiftly here, but now that we have this motion that's been approved here, I think we should open the space and floor if there are volunteers or those that would like to express interest in participating on this space. Mr. Campbell-Gooch, I see you alive and well here, red.
I would like to volunteer.
Thank you, Mr. Campbell-Gooch. Anyone else here? Mr. Martinez? Any other members of the board? Mr. Sweeney?
I'd like to participate, and I'd like to bring along Dr. Hildreth.
Okay. That's great. It's always good to bring a friend. She says she's already done so. I don't know what she's talking about. But Dr. Hildreth.
Why don't we nominate our newest member? Trial by fire, if you will.
Mr. Goddard, are you interested or available?
I am interested. I was hesitant to volunteer because I don't have much history with you yet.
All right.
If you want me there, I'm absolutely in.
Yes, sir. Well, I think we would love to have you there. We can't express to you how wet behind the ears all of us have been, were, and still are in a little way. So
I think it definitely calls for at least 2 attorneys to be on this committee.
Absolutely. So we have Mr. Campbell-Gooch, Mr. Martinez, Mr. Goddard, and Mr. Sweeney. Am I correct about that? And Mr. Sweeney intends to bring a friend along if she will agree to the invite. Dr. Hildreth, you're always available, or you could certainly send your energy and efforts by way of a short memo or email. We're welcome. Sunset. It's going to sunset. That's a great space. Thank you very much to the members of the board, as always, for volunteering your energy and time. We do need to, let's appoint someone who's going to at least serve as the point person as that space is led. Is that Mr. Pinkley that will organize the time, place, and lead the efforts of the energy of the content? Thank you. That'd be great. Thank you very much. Let's be thoughtful here. I don't want to bypass the local law enforcement policies, immigration, even with the space of the new process we have in mind. I think it's important that we have this same level of energy and focused conversation here. So, Ms. Liz, or can you pronounce your last name for me?
Orozco.
Orozco. Thank you very much. Miss Liz is not going to cut it. Miss Orozco. Thank you so very much. And led by Ms. Orozco and also championed with our leader here, Mr. Martinez. You have the floor. Thank you.
Thank you. So I just wanted to start by saying that we got a lot of thoughtful comments on this report, both written and at the public comment meeting that we had on January 9th. I don't know if Board Member Martinez wants to talk a little bit about that meeting, but we're running late here, so I'm trying to be brief. So I also have a response to comments and revisions made document, very similar to the body-worn camera document that Dr. Villier was just talking about. I ended up making revisions to 5 of the policy recommendations. I don't think all of you have this document in front of you, but I can briefly go over the policy recommendations that were changed. Recommendation number 6, we received a written comment from Turk asking us to clarify what we meant by diversity. In recommendation number 6, to include language proficiency and cultural competency. So recommendation number 6 now reads, the MMPD should work to increase the diversity of police officers through language proficiency and cultural competency in order to better reflect the community that they are serving. For recommendation number 10, that's been edited to include collaboration with organizations that are already working on community education about their rights regarding police and immigration. So recommendation number 10 now reads, the mayor's office should collaborate with advocacy groups and the MNPD to create workshops for community members to increase the understanding of their rights and of various metro processes, such as the outcomes of reporting a crime or domestic violence situation or showing up to court. And then recommendation number 9, that was edited to include the comment that the El Protector program has had some mixed reviews about how effective it is. And so recommendation number 9 was revised to read, the MMPD should seek input from the community on how to improve the El Protector program, which conducts outreach to the Latinx community in South Nashville, and work to create similar outreach programs for other immigrant communities in Nashville. Recommendation number 11 was revised. This is the one about MMPD forms and their translation. This recommendation came from Board Member Sweeney to revise the recommendation so it'd be more feasible to implement. The recommendation now reads, any official form that a member of the public may be asked to sign should have a professionally translated version available in at least the 5 most commonly spoken languages in Nashville in order to provide more fair and equal treatment to community members. Along with this revision, I added a section about 2 other metro agencies and the translations they provide. So the Department of Public Health provides their HIPAA agreements and consents in Spanish as well as English because it's a pretty legally binding document. And the Metro Nashville Public Schools system, they actually provide multiple forms in Spanish, Kurdish, and Arabic. And finally, for recommendation number 12, this is in regards to the Sheriff's Office. This was also a recommendation that came from Board Member Sweeney about potential inconsistencies with County Sheriff's Office staff providing rights to people that are in booking. So the recommendation now reads, the Davidson County Sheriff's Office should inform persons of their rights while they're in booking. This can include written postings of rights in multiple languages. Should ICE officials call to speak to a person who's in booking, the Sheriff's Office should inform the person of who is on the phone and what their rights are when interacting with federal immigration enforcement officials. And that's all the policy recommendation changes. There are other changes in this document, certain words that were added or taken out, and a couple of comments that were duplicates as well.
Thank you, Ms. Orozco. Thank you very much. Mr. Martinez, anything to add here? Want to tell us about even the spirit of the meeting? Is it okay? I'm not forcing you. I just want to make sure we
No,
extend
I think we
this
had a great, really productive meeting. I think we had about 6 comments from the public, aside from the written ones. All, the same type of urgency that Board Member Gooch talked about, that people really want the certainty of having these policy recommendations made so that MNPD can act on them. So, and thank you, Liz, for the work.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. So we'll wait for our newly formed body to come together. We'll prepare us for the February meeting. Just thinking about just the function of this so that it's smooth, though, it would be helpful even after this meeting, after the body is met, the 2 or 3 times or whatever the cadence is necessary to be ready and prepared, that we ensure that Dr. Valier, Mr. Roscoe, I don't know. Maybe just, I don't know why I'm fumbling here. I'm sorry. I'm protein deficient, I can tell you that today. But that they are fully aware as well, right? Because it certainly impacts their space and portfolio. But it goes without saying that it's certainly important to acknowledge, one, that the members of the board that led these efforts, but also members of the community that took time out of their space and time and energy to respond, to be present. It shows a testament again that the biggest force we have is the community. So thank you very much to everyone involved here. Anything else on any of the subcommittees or the readouts here before we move to the next phase? Anything from our leadership here? Anything? No? Okay, then let's move to the 2020 COB new members and vacancies. Mr. Pinkley is going to lead us here in giving us just awareness and also guidance here as we move forward in the year.
So I'm going to keep this real short since we're running a little over. The first round of interviews, I believe Chair Davis was one of those people, was held last night at the Metro Council meeting. The next round of interviews are going to take place on February 4th for all of those who weren't able to make it last night. There was an email that was sent out by the Metro clerk to all of the applicants telling them that their questionnaires are due by January 28th. So I just wanted to make sure that was announced and that anyone watching or here knows that those need to be submitted by Tuesday. And then the interview will take place at 4:45 in room 205 of the Metro Courthouse, Committee Room 2. And then it's requested that everyone remain present for the council meeting beginning at 6:30.
Thank you, Mr. Pinkley.
Just something for the board to be aware of moving forward. It's about the time to hold the next executive committee elections, so just everyone be aware of that going forward.
It's very important. Is there, well, let me pause. Any other questions or anything else here, Mr. Pinkley? If not, we'll go to the board for any clarification or comments here. Mr. Campbell-Gooch?
Real quick, I sat in on an interview, and their interview format was completely different from what I experienced. Can you talk to the changes that took place?
Unfortunately, I don't know any of that. That would probably be based on the Rules, Confirmations, and Public Elections Committee on how they decided they wanted to do those interviews.
Something up for the board's consideration. I would ask people to take serious thought into how we would get board members on the board, because I feel like when we had, especially in mine, when we had our interviews, it was clear that it was something like very serious. I mean, it was very clear. But I think that process came up with the best board that we could possibly have. And so I just want to make, I just want to make sure that we hold true to that process.
Thank you, Mr. Campbell-Gooch. Dr. Hildreth.
Thank you. I'm wondering, since the council is conducting this is their purview, I'm wondering if it's appropriate to ask the board chair to make a request of the vice mayor that council members who were present last year in this process be invited, probably as special guests to the Rules Committee where these interviews are being taken, so that some of that same energy and institutional history can move over.
Some of those council members aren't available anymore. They're not council members. They're interviewed.
But there's several who still are.
Yeah.
The ones who were in the Rules Committee when Mr. Cooper and I went before, many of them are still in council, even if they're not on Rules Committee. Okay. So asking me, and I think that they had a number of special appointments because the panel was so large. They had a standing member of the Rules Committee on each subpanel, and then there were other people coming in. So there's still enough leadership that remember what it meant and how important it was. And I'm just going to say on the record now that I'm sure Vice Mayor Schulman remembers how important it was because he was so helpful in getting this plane airborne. So if we make the appeal directly to him to do something to configure the interview panels so that there's some similarity, we can at least make the request. And that probably should happen in writing soon. Thank you.
Take your point. Thank you, Dr. Hildreth. I understand. I appreciate all these points here. I just want to be clear. I'm taking notes on my side, too. I want to make sure that's appropriate for me to do as board chair. Yeah, not just as board chair, but rather,
maybe
right.
The vice chairs can do that on your behalf.
Yeah, so I mean, our first anti is Mr. Martinez. It's probably more appropriate for him. And I just would like to, at all times be as appropriate as possible. But I take your point. I think it's well stated. I'm happy even to be helpful as I can without being in the space, with ensuring the essence of what the board is talking about here is reflected there in that language. Would you say, Ms. Ross?
Who are you recommends?
Well, I think naturally we just lead directly to our first and to our vice chair, Mr.
Okay.
Martinez, and
That's
just go in that order. And perhaps if our vice chair wants to confer with our second, that makes sense, and that keeps your chair completely out of it and out of the weeds there. But thank you. I think it makes a lot of sense. Anything else here? But let me just talk timeline just for the board's awareness. And when we talk about the executive committee and in this time around, this iteration, we would look for to appoint leaders that would serve for at least a full, and y'all correct me here, but for the full year, right? So we have that continuity of a full year of leadership in the space. It's the idea that we would go through the process, then we keep the current leadership in place for one more month and then begin the process for the following month, just considering what we have to do and appointments and that.
I think that might be best. That way the new board members would be on, and then if they were interested or if someone on the board felt they were appropriate for that position, then they can vote for their leadership and they could also potentially run for that spot.
Great. Okay. So just so everyone is on the same page here. Sounds great. Okay. Any other questions or comments here related to the new members or the vacancies? Okay. Fantastic. Yeah, Dr. Lewis.
Do we have any idea about how many people are applying? I mean, it was like speed dating when we did it.
I think it's 10 or 11.
It was 11 people. The 2 interviews that were conducted last night should be up on the YouTube channel already so that you can go and listen to those 2. And then when they choose on the 4th, they will choose those 3 people on that day. So.
Thank you. Total of 3. Yes. Okay, thank you very much. We will move to our public comment. We will welcome in order of how it's listed on the sign-in sheet. We have our, you're taking notes today.
No.
Oh, you are? Okay.
I'm doing.
So it's okay. I was going to say Mr. Kamaguchi can help you out if you needed it. But we welcome Mr. Tucker here, Mr. David Tucker, for the public comment space here. And we will offer you a 1-minute warning as appropriate.
Thank you, Chairperson, for this opportunity to address you again. Again, I'm always just amazed at the time and effort that you've put into getting this commission up to this point. But also want to encourage you to really, really take advantage of this front-end accountability that you have. The city invited in folk from the Jeff Sessions /Barr/Trump Justice Department who have made public statements, changed policy initiatives with a direct attack on policing. The community has no confidence in anything that they come here to say. Now, Judge Sweeney, a person I greatly admire, I do think there needs to be some effort of at least some level of expertise. Yeah, you got to know the difference between a nail and a screw. I got you. But I think Nashville has you here not for expertise, but for empathy, to understand the feelings of another and be able to share that. That's what I think is most important, that the issue that created this board needs not ever go away and you sink into this bureaucracy that it could so easily become. As a preacher, all we got is Bible stories, but you're kind of like our Moses. You come up in Pharaoh's house, but you never forget who you are. And when stuff goes bad, you stand up and you show who you are. And this body camera thing has gone on long enough. And this Amendment 1 gives us what I think is one of the more powerful elements, is front-end accountability. I would rather you make your best effort at it and get it wrong than to try to become a pro in it. We need your empathy more than your expertise. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Tucker. Thank you very much. Next, we have Ms. Sabina Mahudin.
Sabina Mohideen.
That was terrible advice from Mr. Martinez. I hope that was on camera. Yeah, he butchers it, and he helped me.
Well, I'll get on his case later.
Thank
That's
you.
all right.
Will you say it one more time for us?
Sabina Mohideen.
Mohideen.
Right.
Thank you
I'm the
very much.
executive director of the American Muslim Advisory Council. We're a statewide organization serving the Muslim community, and in Middle Tennessee, we have about 40,000 Muslims, and I had the distinct pleasure of talking with Jill and Resni and Liz about the issues we're seeing in our community. And looking at the policy recommendations, I just wanted to elaborate on some of the issues so you understand like what is coming from the Muslim community. And two of the policy recommendations was about diversity in the police force and better outreach in the community. And these things go hand in hand because we really would like more Muslim police officers. But the challenge is many people don't see that as a viable career path. And there have been some Muslims in the police department, but they don't get to go up the ranks. And then again, and this is how the diversity and better outreach kind of overlaps in that there's a problem with cultural competency. And so in Metro Human Relations, they do a cadet training, the Mobile Diversity Seminar, and they'll be coming to Islamic Center of Nashville next Wednesday. We've been doing this for several years, but that's for cadets. So what happens for law enforcement when they've been through the years working, they've been so removed from hearing who our community is, what are our concerns, and with our community, what goes on around the world affects us directly. Whether it's our fears of somebody coming and whether it's hate crimes or any kind of incidents, we have concerns, and we've had times when we've reached out to the police department, and they're like, we don't see any problem here. And so they don't really understand where our concerns come along. And so I'm talking to community members who said, well, yes, we see the police. They call, when we call, they respond. Sometimes response time is delayed. But when they do respond, they come, they do their work, they leave. And so you don't see the same officers, you don't build relationships, and so community members don't look at them as someone's footsteps they want to follow in. And so when we're talking about really diversifying the police department, we have to really think about how are these relationships being met, and are they, really seen as a respectable way, someone who's really helping the community and meeting the community needs, understanding our community, and so better cultural competency training. And again, it's not just within the community, but for the police officers, Muslim police officers who are in the department. We've talked about the El Protector program. I've heard that we would like something like that in our communities, but again, there are some issues in it, and just really engaging, better engagement within our community. So I just wanted to emphasize those aspects of our relationship.
Thank you, Ms. Mohideen. Thank you very much. Thank you to both Ms. Mohideen and Mr. Tucker as well. We have next our new business and announcements. Any new business or announcements? Chief Turner.
Well, this isn't any new business, but first of all, I would like to thank Dr. Hildreth for all of her effort and bringing about the MOU. I know it was time-consuming and a lot of work, but I think this is a document by which this board can move forward and carry out its mission. The second thing, as you know, this is my final meeting, and I just want to tell you that it's been a pleasure and an honor to serve on this board with so many diverse people And even though I won't be a board member, but I will make myself available to help in any way that I can. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Chief Turner. Thank you for your service as well. Thank you. And Chief Turner raises an important point. It's important for us also to acknowledge our former colleague, Ms. Marsh, as well, who shared her resignation letter with us, but remains not just in spirit, but in action with these important efforts as well. Thanks to both of you for your service here. Any additional new business or announcements here? Yeah, Mr. Campbell-Gooch.
I have a quick announcement. As most of you know, I do street-based restorative justice between groups that have experienced some type of violence within the area patrolled by the North Precinct. I would like to announce that we have experienced a 7% drop in all violent crime. And just to frame that even more, 1/3 of all gunshots in Nashville happen in that precinct. And so I just wanted to share that number with everyone, because I think that's an extremely powerful number that community members have fought for and have done the hard work for. So I just wanted to share that we've experienced a 7% drop in North Nashville.
That's great. Thank you, Mr. Campbell-Gooch, for your efforts both on this board and beyond, too. It's important to note. Director Fisher, do you have, do I see you?
Yes, I wanted to also thank Chair Davis for her service and her leadership of this Community Oversight Board. We know that this is your last meeting, and we know that you have reapplied to continue to be on the board. But whatever happens, I'm just very thankful to have been able to work with you in this last, my 6 months here. So thank you for your service and your leadership, and we appreciate you. And Mr. Turner, Chief Turner, we appreciate you too, and I will be calling you, checking in with you. But thank you for your service as well.
Thank you very much, Director Fisher. I appreciate it very much. It's been an honor to serve. Any additional new business or announcements here? All right. Now I'll accept a motion, the one y'all hate to make. Is there a motion? Mr. Sweeney? I sure do. Thank you, Mr. In fact, it's up on my phone here. I pulled it up and then closed it down. Thank you to Mr. Sweeney for the reminder here. And I'm only not saying remarks or anything as it relates to what this being my last meeting on, because I know myself. I'm a big old Scorpio baby, and I'll get teary-eyed. But it's been awesome to serve in this space. I'm going to read the appeals statement because I certainly usually open the meeting with it, but I did not have the opportunity because I did not take it. So apologies, because I need to read it exactly as it is stated. So give me just a few seconds. I keep it in my favorites here, and then we will be able to adjourn here. Let's see here. So here we are as well. Okay. All right. Pursuant to the provisions of Section 2.68.030 of the Metropolitan Code of Laws, please take notice that decisions of the Metropolitan Government of Nashville and the Davidson County Community Oversight Board may be appealed to the Chancery Court of Davidson County for review under a common law writ of cert. Any appeal must be filed within 60 days after entry of a final decision by the board. Any person or other entity considering an appeal should consult with an attorney to ensure the time and procedural requirements are met. With that, is there a motion to adjourn? Thank you, Mr. Martinez. Anyone second? Second. Thank you, Ms. Ross. All those does anyone want to talk about it? Any focused discussion? With that, all those in favor, please say aye. Thank you very much. Motion carries. We are adjourned at 6:25 p.m. Thank you, everyone. Thank you very much.
This has been a service of the Metro Nashville Network. If you would like to see this presentation again, or for more information about this and other programs, visit nashville.org.